During this video, I'd like to go over some potential challenges that you might come across while digitizing and discuss some solutions to those challenges. So first of all, the goal of this mapathon and the goal of your participation is to place a point on the rooftop of every individual structure that you see. But here are some things to look out for. Look out for structures on square boundaries that are often overlooked. So picture an image of a village where people live in compounds that are delineated by fences. Sometimes along the fences there are small buildings that you can overlook. Here, for example, here's the main house in this compound, but also in this corner there's a small building along the fence. You would digitize both of these structures. Look out for buildings that can be partially hidden by trees. So scan the edges of forested areas and look for 90-degree angles. Areas with a lot of trees, sometimes you can overlook the buildings, but if you look closely, you'll notice a 90-degree angle pointing out from under the trees. So here, for example, it's extremely forested, but in these circled areas, you can see that there are 90-degree angles, buildings that have roofs and are putting off a shadow. So you would digitize all of these. In this area as well, on first glance, you might think this is just farmland. I don't see anyone living here. But if you zoom in on the middle closer, there are two buildings here. One here, you can tell by the shadow and the 90-degree angle that that's a structure. And then also under these trees, there's a small round structure. Look out for, in urban areas, sometimes it's difficult to differentiate where rooftops run together and where they're separate. This is especially difficult in market areas. So take this market area, for example. It's really difficult to tell in some of these long buildings whether this is all one building or if it needs multiple points. The rule of thumb, if you can see for sure that there is a separate rooftop, like here, 1, 2, put 2 dots. But on this long building, for example, you really don't see a break in the rooftop, so just put 1 point there. Here's another example of a pretty highly populated area that you really end up with a lot of points, but all of these rooftops are individual, so each one would get 1 point. So one good rule of thumb to remember is that a structure is going to put off a shadow, while low objects that aren't structures, so borrow pits and burn piles, will not have shadows. Also, you can help determine whether or not something is a structure and that someone's living there based on whether or not there are paths leading to it. Usually, structures that are inhabited have some sort of path leading to them. Here, for example, maybe at first look you would think that these darker areas that are circled are the tops of huts or something, but you can see they're not putting off any shadow. So you would not digitize these. These are not structures. Once again here, after a while, after digitizing for a long time, sometimes your eyes start playing tricks on you and you might think, oh, is this a building? Is this a building? But you can see here that these are just different parcels of land and none of them are putting off shadows. So if there's no shadow, you can feel pretty confident that it's not a structure. Also look out for the different types of roofs that you might come across. So roofs can be metal and they can also be made of natural materials. Corrugated metal rooftops will look really white and shiny when they reflect in the imagery. This could be a water feature, but usually it's just a shiny roof. So here, for example, right in the center, circled in red, it's a really shiny reflection, but that's just a metal roof. So you would digitize that. Here's another example. So in real life, this is what huts look like. And then from above, these are the tops of huts. So you would digitize each and every one of these. Once again, up here, we have a really shiny metal roof. That would also be digitized. Another thing to look out for is shipping containers. So they can be stacked at the railway station or along the railway line or at the port. And if you see them there, they're not structures. they're full of goods and they're about to be shipped out. If you spot shipping containers that are stacked in the city away from ports and away from railways, do digitize those because those could be lived in. So here, for example, these shipping containers are stacked along the railway. You would not digitize these. These are not lived in and will be shipped off. But here, for example, you're in town around other residential areas. These shipping containers circled in blue could be lived in, so you would digitize those. Another big thing to look out for are buildings under construction. As a rule of thumb, do digitize buildings under construction. If you see a building under construction, put a point on it. So here are some examples. This is what a building under construction looks like from the ground. From the sky, it might look like this. So when you see these open, gridded images that you can't really tell what they are and they don't have roofs, those are probably buildings under construction, and you will place a point on each one that you see. Here again, this is what it looks like on the ground, but from the air, it'll be a gridded, non-roofed structure, but you would put a point on that. Also look out for stadiums. In general, you will put a single point on a stadium, but often there are neighboring shops that are connected to it, and put a single point on each of those shops as well. So if you can identify a structure, no matter how small it is, map it. If the object is so small that you're unsure if it even is a structure, you can either not digitize it, or I would suggest taking a screenshot of that and sending it to the Slack channel to ask whether or not you should digitize it. In general, we are capturing any structure that appears to be 10 feet or larger, and on your digitizing app, there's a tool for measuring. So you can use that measurement tool to see if something is over 10 feet or not. When in doubt, post your question to Slack. The Slack channel will be continuously monitored, and we will answer your questions as quickly as possible. During our last mapathon, we were able to answer questions in real time as they came in. So if you have a question, look to the instructional guide, look to these videos, but if you can't find your answer, please take a screenshot and ask your question on the Slack channel. That's what it's there for, and we're happy to answer your questions.